Hi, everyone. It's Ron Ruth. My guest today is Pluralsight author, Batman addict, and technical dude, Dale Meredith. Dale has been a Microsoft certified trainer for well over 2 decades and is also a certified ethical hacker. As it is on his website, DaleDumbsItDown.com, his expertise is in straddling the line between fun and function and explaining difficult concepts and delivering actionable knowledge on today's issues and technologies. All right, so Dale, we got lots of ground to cover. We're going to talk about security for 2020. We've got 3 ideas. We're going to talk about 3 ideas, security ideas to protect your computer, 3 ideas, security ideas to protect your mobile device, and we're going to talk about 3 ways that you can protect your home. So let's start with that first one. The thing that actually I'm talking on right now, my laptop computer. What's going to be the first way that we can absolutely protect our computers from being hacked in this coming year?
Just turn off the internet. No, I'm kidding.
Turn off the internet?
Yeah, just don't use it. That'd solve everybody's problem right there.
Go back to Encyclopedia Britannica.
Yeah, exactly.
A whole collection.
So that is the problem, is that we're all interconnected today. You know, back when I was growing up, that wasn't necessarily the case.
Right.
But it's crazy now that everything is connected. So there's a couple things that you can do on the PC side of things to make sure things are secure for you.
Okay.
The one thing that I always get asked questions about, well, let me tell you the scenario that happens. I get the phone call and they're like, hey, Dale, usually it's a neighbor, my machine is acting kind of funny. Can you come over and take a look at it? So I'll be nice. I'll go over and I'll take a look at it. And I see one of 2 things. Either their antivirus has expired. They didn't update their subscription. And that's a problem. Because those definitions, right? They need to be updated all the time. Or they're using a pirated, this is my favorite, a pirated version of an antivirus solution.
You got to be kidding.
I'm just like, really? You don't... And we'll talk about this more a little bit later on, but we talk about the source of where we get our software. But the one thing you want to do is your antivirus should not be pirated. Come on, folks. Let's pay the $49 a year to protect something so valuable to us. So I want to say that my first thing would be obviously to make sure that you keep that protected or updated, I should say. And when it comes to updates, let me back up a second here, Ron. Not only we have this tendency of backing up Windows or our latest version of Mac OS, right? But how many times was the last time we backed up, or excuse me, I shouldn't say backed up, updated our router? Yeah, a lot of people don't know that routers have software. That interface you get in to play around with the router? Well, it's called firmware, and a lot of them buried inside of it, usually under administrative, there's a place to check for updates. And so we need to make sure we keep those up to date as well. I always tell people you got to keep not only your OS, your applications, but hardware as well up to date. It's so important. All the breaches that we see out there take place, typically, after they've done all their forensics and investigations, it's typically, they didn't have everything up to date, or they had a old version, I shouldn't even say old version, they had an XP machine still on the network. Which there's no support for that. So that would be number 1 for me, is everything's up to date. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And before we move on to number 2, I want to go back on a couple of things. Okay, so you said a pirated version of don't use a pirated version of antivirus. Okay, I get that. But what about I use Windows and I use Windows Defender. Is that enough, or do I need Norton, or do I need AVG, or whatever? What do I need additional protection on top of Windows Defender?
Well, you little people. No.
We're going to go there, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So for me, I'll phrase it, it depends on your level of technical prowess. How's that? Okay. Because for me, Defender does a great job for me. I know I've programmed myself. I don't click on links, even if they come in an email. I don't fall. I can basically, I see my environment. I know what I'm doing. But I know that not everybody's that way. My sister is definitely not that way. So yeah, in those cases, I would look at some type of an antivirus solution. Microsoft, it gets better and better with their Defender solution. that's built in. And by the way, for those folks out there that think that you're safe on a Mac, you don't need antivirus. Shame on you. It's not true. It's the same thing with Linux. Matter of fact, Mac OS and Linux are basically the same thing, just different interfaces. But you need to make sure you protect yourself. And here's what's really cool is that it used to be expensive, and there's a lot of free product out there. The difference between the free product and your paid product is that the free product is going to require you to manually update and manually run your scans. But most of the products that are out there, you can pay one fee like $49.59, maybe $69, and you get to cover 5 devices. I mean, that's so worth it. It's not even funny.
All right, so that's one way that we can keep our computer safe. What's another way?
Okay, so it kind of goes along with this, and that is I mentioned earlier about the source of your files, right?
Okay.
Source of our applications. I think sometimes we have this urge of getting something for free, and so I'm going to pick on the torrent crowd at this point. So BitTorrent, if you're not familiar with it, basically it's a network where people share files, and you can download movies, books, music, applications. The problem is that hackers or attackers, they know that. And so what they will do, when I made fun of somebody who had a pirated version of antivirus, what they do is they take the photos, yeah, they do photos too. They take the photo, the video, maybe it's, I don't know, Avengers Endgame. They take that movie and they attach malicious code to it. So when you download it and you execute it, boom, they now have a backdoor into your environment. So I never, ever I'll be the first to be honest with you here, Ron. About 8 years ago, I'm a reformed pirate. So wow. I've learned my lesson just because of the knowledge that I've gained that I don't do that anymore. And it's extremely prevalent with the kids today. They love getting their music.
Is that the way kids do it now?
Yeah, I think they do it.
Okay, all right. I'm just
maybe a little of this. I'm not sure. But you always make sure that my father, who you knew, a famous quote to me all the time was, "There's no such thing as a free lunch."
Right.
And I'm a firm believer of that. Even with things like Google and stuff, you're giving up something. But make sure that if you're investing in something like a laptop, a computer, and what it does, you make sure that everything you put in it is legit. It's an investment. Otherwise, trust me, you're going to spend a lot of time taking your computer back because it's slow all of a sudden. And the reason why it's slow is because an attacker is now using your device to mine Bitcoins for him.
Right.
Or, he's using your resources. So make sure that you get your legitimate applications and software from the actual sources themselves. Don't, it's the same thing with, like a car. If you see a Cadillac out for sale for $1,000 or a Rolex for $1,000, it's probably not a real Rolex. Same thing with software. If you see a deal too good to be true, I just say no.
So Dale, what's that third thing that we can do to keep our computers safe for 2020?
Well, Ron, I think the third item that would help us, not only in our homes, believe it or not, but especially if we're traveling,
right?
They're called VPN software.
Okay, tell me about that.
VPN is short for a virtual private network.
Okay.
Right now, when I have my laptop and let's say that I'm making a connection to you right now. Right now, all my data is going from my computer out through my router, through my ISP. It's going then to several different places along the internet. It's all being tracked. Okay. People often ask themselves, how does Google all of a sudden know that I'm looking for motorcycle helmets? It's because they're monitoring this traffic that's going through, including your ISP. So it finally gets to you, but that whole connection the entire way is open to the public. That's what the internet is. It's a public network. The problem with that, especially when we're traveling, is that if I hook into somebody's Wi-Fi, and we'll get into that with some key things with mobile devices or our phones or smaller devices, but the same rule applies here with our PCs, is that I'm connecting into somebody's network, and to be honest with you, I don't know who they are. And in the hacking world, we have this famous quote, and that is, if it's not your network, it's not your device anymore. Because I can easily create a fake network and make you think that you're on a particular Wi-Fi, McDonald's Wi-Fi. So what a VPN does is it starts a connection from your system to a VPN provider, and it encapsulates or encrypts your data. So what happens is now my ISP and Google, they have no idea what I'm transmitting because it gets to my VPN provider, and then they go out and get the information, they return it to me. Now, here's the kicker. So first of all, we had the public Wi-Fi, or excuse me, the public internet itself.
Right.
I've laid down my own cable, my own private cable to surf the internet.
Okay.
Couple things here, and that is, one, laying down that cable and transmitting the data does give us a little bit of latency, a little bit of a toll as far as performance is concerned. But security is, in my world, I don't care about speed, I care about being secure.
Right. So
when I'm traveling, a matter of fact, I tell this to people all the time, you don't ever hook into a public Wi-Fi, because remember, if it's not your network, it's not your device anymore, unless I have my VPN. So I fire up my VPN, I make my connection, and I'm protected at that point.
Okay, so being one of those little people that you pointed at earlier, I can do that.
There we go.
So tell me how I'm computer illiterate. So how do I get a VPN? Where am I going to get this from? Is this something I put on my computer? Is this something that sits outside tell me about what is it? Where do I get it? And how do I install it?
Run for $29.99. I can tell you. No, I'm kidding. So one of there's several VPN providers that are out there. I mean, Norton has their own VPN solution.
Okay.
There's a ton of companies. I use a company called ExpressVPN.
Okay.
And the reason why I do that is, again, me in security, right? It's my primary thing. Most of the VPN providers that are US based have to oblige to the laws of the internet, which means if at any time the government wants to know where you went, what you did, they could go to the VPN provider and they have to turn those records over.
Okay.
So there's a couple VPN providers out there. Express happens to be one of them. They are based outside the United States, so they don't keep any logs. They log my account information, like my username and password, as I authenticate, but that's it. They don't log where I went, and what I did. Now, as far as how easy this is, this is one of the reasons why I like ExpressVPN so easily. You just download their software. You literally click next, like everybody else does when they're doing an application. And it just sits in your tray and it's there. It's so easy to fire up. And then when you need to use it, you just simply go and say, fire up VPN, and it lets you choose. It looks at kind of where you're at. Like if I was to fire mine up right now, I'm based out of Utah, and it would say, okay, do you want to be based out of Salt Lake, or do you want to be based out of the Western area? Or I can choose my own city.
I see.
So here's, for anybody that's traveling, what this could do for me. I might be in a country where I can't watch certain shows on Netflix because it's blocked.
Right.
But with a VPN, it makes it look like I'm in San Francisco.
Oh.
Because again, remember that connection from me to the provider. In this case here, it would be in San Francisco.
Okay.
Netflix thinks I'm coming from San Francisco. So it's actually one of the ways. There's one of the technologies with the protests that took place in Hong Kong this past fall. Right. That a lot of information was getting out, even though they'd trying to shut down the internet. People were able. What they did is they can't shut down the internet. They actually have a country firewall. Well, people were able to bypass that firewall by creating their own VPN outside of.
Okay.
So that's how we. Yeah. See, there's a lesson learned today.
I I'm feeling far more educated. Before we move on to mobile devices, I had a question earlier and it escaped me, and now I remember it, and I want to go back because you mentioned the word router again. And earlier you were talking about how you can update a router, or how important it is to update a router. In my case, my router comes from Comcast. How do I update a Comcast router? I mean, that's not my router. It's not a router I bought at Best Buy. I mean, isn't it Comcast's responsibility to update it themselves, or is there something I should be doing?
So that depends on their contract with you. Most of the time, we lease the equipment.
Right.
And many times the contracts basically say that you're just leasing equipment. They're not responsible for maintenance.
Right.
So the best way to do this is going to be kind of complicated to talk about without showing you. But when you have what they refer to as a default gateway inside of your network configuration settings. And in my case, let's say here, my default gateway is 192.168.0.1. That's probably the most common one that's out there.
Right.
If you can discover what your default gateway is, you can just put that address in your web browser, and it'll take you to the web interface for the router. And then when Comcast or CenturyLink or whoever sets up your service, they should have given you a username and password to log in. And then you can log in the device. And then, like I said, typically this is more of an advanced feature. So there's typically an advanced option. And then under advanced, there should be someplace in there, maybe under administration. I'm just thinking of mine, but mine's not necessarily what you're dealing with. But under mine, under administration, I have updates, router updates.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to download them separately, just like downloading a file.
Right.
And then you tell the router to go now grab that zip file that you downloaded, and it'll take a little while. Here's the big thing for you. Don't ever update firmware if there's a storm going on around you, because if you lose power in the middle of a firmware update, you just created a doorstop. It's just a brick, because it'll ruin the device. So make sure that you're not planning any power outages when you do that.
Okay, so just a quick review. We talked about keeping things updated, particularly your router. And even though I may not own the router, I mean, and I lease it from Comcast, I should probably still check to make sure that all the firmware and everything is updated in it as well. Don't use pirated security software.
Yes.
Yeah, please don't do that. You want to make certain that the security software that you're using is legit, and go ahead and pay the price. It's worth the protection of your computer. And then last but not least, had to do with VPN, making sure that if you're using your computer someplace, and I assume that I heard you mention McDonald's, but everybody and his brother. I mean, heck, with the holiday shopping, I go into a department store, and of course we'll be talking more about that with mobile devices in a few moments. But everybody has access to the internet now. But you've just got to be cautious and use a VPN. And I'm sure we're going to talk. And actually, let's do this, because that actually is probably going to be a great transition. So we're going to talk about the 3 ways that you can keep your mobile device safe in 2020. So, and maybe this will be a bonus question. Can I put a VPN on my mobile device to protect me when I'm on the internet using this thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So a great example. I've got my phone, and I have the ability to turn this into a hotspot.
Okay.
So that my laptop can connect up to it. I do this all the time. I run my VPN off of here. So my laptop, the wireless connection from my laptop to here, it's not encrypted, but once it hits here, it's encrypted all the way out.
Okay.
So definitely that's a great solution. In fact, I use this. This is my first choice as far as using my phone as my hotspot. Then I will any Wi-Fi access before I use Wi-Fi, public Wi-Fi. Again, if I'm going to use public Wi-Fi, even if it's for a phone and it's not my network, I'm going to fire up that VPN software. Most of them, including Express, they have mobile Express VPN. They have mobile apps that you can, again, easily install. It's a button. I drag it down, hit go, and I'm good to go.
And I would think that would be so important, like especially on an airplane or in an airport. I saw a video. You did a YouTube video with your son of him getting ready to log on to internet at the airport. And you went, no, you don't do that. But you said Express also provides VPN app for this as well.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Awesome.
And majority of them, because of the fact how prevalent these devices are in our world, the majority of them have an app for those devices.
Okay. So, and even if it's an Apple is not immune.
No.
Just like you were talking about, Macintosh computers are not immune to viruses.
Yes,
okay, so
they are immune. They are immune, Ron. Go ahead and use those.
Yeah. So that's one, and as I said, it may be a bonus idea. But what's another way we can keep these silly things safe in 2020? Keep people that we don't want into our devices.
So this is actually one of the easiest things to do. It does require us to have something else in play that we'll talk about here in just a second. But what I mean by that is it requires me to be using some type of password manager.
Okay.
Because what I'm about to tell you, it may seem kind of weird, but when you think about it, you're gonna be like, well, yeah, that makes sense. When I'm not traveling, I don't need Uber on my phone. Every app that we install on our devices take up resources, and they're always scanning to see if they can make their connection so they can, in case you walk out of your local grocery store, it may think that you need an Uber ride, and so it's always looking. Well, if I'm not traveling, I uninstall the app.
Okay.
So, sorry about that. That's my alarm. Sorry.
Time for your pills?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
The antipsychotic ones. No. No. So I lost my train of thought. Hang on a second.
We were talking apps.
Okay. Yeah. So another great example. I go on a trip, and one of the things I love to do when I'm in big cities is I love riding bird scooters as well as Lime scooters. Well, I don't have the app installed right now because I'm home. When I go on my trip, I just quickly go back into my app store, download the app again, and then because I will use a password manager, it knows what the password and username is, and it immediately puts me back on. Okay, I'm inconvenienced about 15 seconds of my time. To me, that's worth it. And here's why. It's not that Uber or any of these apps, games, it's not that they are malicious by default, but one, if there is some type of a data breach that's out there, and we mentioned before, it's a matter of if, not when. It's a matter of when, not if. Holy cow. Right. As far as a data breach. If Uber gets a data breach, who's to say that they can't use my login credentials to gain access to my device? Very far-fetched as far as concept is concerned, but it just gets me in this habit. The other issue is sometimes we go to update the apps. Let me ask you, Ron, are you Android or Apple?
I'm Apple.
Okay, I won't hold that against you, sir. No, Apple makes a great device. When you get your updates, when you go into the store and it says, "Hey, this app needs to be updated," do you review what changes are being made?
No.
99.8% of the people out there are probably saying the same thing. No, they don't. In fact, they open up on Android, they hit check my updates, and it says, you got 15 apps that need updated, and they just hit update all. The problem with this is that sometimes the permissions the apps have change. And are you aware of that? For example, let's say that you have a game, and you install the game, and it's a popular, let's say it's Flappy Ducks. See, I'm not going to use the other one. Flappy Ducks, it's a game. And when I installed it, it just said it needed internet access. I'm like, well, yeah, I need that so that I can download the levels. But in one of the updates, all of a sudden, it wants access to my contacts. Did I review that? Or did I just hit update all? So that's one of the key things that, in matter of fact, if you uninstall the app when you're not using it and reinstalling it, you'll see the permissions pop up when you go to reinstall. So it's a great way of keeping yourself in check as far as those permissions are concerned. We give up so much data with these apps that keeping them installed. One, it's going to slow down the performance. As a matter of fact, here's your free tip of the day. It slows your phones down. You want to speed up your phone? Well, let's relate this back to a PC. Have you ever formatted a hard drive on a PC and reinstalled it, and you're like, holy cow, this thing's fast? It's the same thing. If you were to do a factory reset on your phone, you'd be surprised how fast it is because of all the apps that were bogging it down. So get rid of the ones you don't need right now, that you don't use daily.
Well, it's funny because I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 pages of apps. Probably be a good idea to eliminate at least a few of those, because I know this. There's some of these that I could definitely do. Places I haven't shopped in like forever, and I know there's a couple apps on here that are outdated and don't do anything anyway. So yeah. Okay, so uninstalling apps that we don't need actually to help speed up our phone. What else you got for me? We need one more big tip to keep these silly things secure into 2020.
Let's let me throw out a neat hint that just basically got released on the Apple platform.
Okay,
but it's been around a while with the Android folks. So it's a performance issue. I told you. So I'm all about performance, and we're always upgrading our phones because our phones seem slower because there's something new around. One of the things you can actually do, it's not necessarily a security issue, but it's more of a performance issue. Start using what they refer to as the dark themes. And what that does is that when I turn on a phone, that white screen requires power from my battery.
Right.
Some of I've got on my phone here, mine's kind of a darker theme. Yes, it is Batman related. For those of you that follow me, you know my addiction to Batman. But some of the apps are now coming out with dark mode enabled. And what that does is it basically gives you a theme that's dark because black doesn't require any energy. It's just it's just pixels that aren't displaying any type of light. So that's and it's been a big thing, especially when they released it with the latest version of iOS just this last year, that they announced that. And you would be surprised how long. Matter of fact, so I run a Note 10 myself, and I used to have to turn off my location services and just turn off everything, turn off Bluetooth, even around my house, unless I was going to listen to something on my headphones or anything, just to try to get enough energy to get through the day. Now I definitely get anywhere from probably up to 20 hours a day at least on my phone, just by changing that mode.
I saw that one on your YouTube video actually before we even spoke today, and I'm definitely going to try that because it seems like I'm having to recharge my phone every day. But I listen to like streaming apps, like radio apps all the time, and I thought maybe that was what was doing it. But I'm going to try your way and see if maybe that does something to save. And I'm going to share a security tip on mobile devices with you. I on the news recently, they've been talking about how you don't want to use the charging stations at airports. And I'm guessing not just at airports, but I can assume this means you're familiar with the story, aren't you? I mean, are we talking about charging stations just in airports, or is it just a wise idea not to use a charging station anywhere if you're not familiar with it?
Yeah, so there's a couple issues that are taking place right now. First of all, what we see are these charge stations that are legitimately out there for convenience to help. You mentioned an airport. The problem is very similar to the ATMs and the fake faceplates skimmers that they put on it.
Yep.
They can do that. They can actually do that on outlets now. And what's attached to it is just a little device that's going to record information or try to gain access to your device. And it's called setting up a reverse shell, which allows me to gain access to your phone. There's two things that you can do to protect yourself. One, I got three things. Carry your own power bank. I mean, these things are cheap. Throw them in your backpack, right? You got one?
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, and all I do is just, you can actually, the wise thing to do would be to plug this, if you need to, plug this into the charging station and then plug your phone into this.
Right. Because there's no data connection between those two outlets.
Exactly.
The other thing you can do is you can jump on Amazon and you can purchase USB cables that are power only, no data transfer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You have to really look for them, but it's definitely an option. What we're seeing, though, today is that on both sides, Android and Mac, no, not Mac, iOS, we're seeing new features pop up. Like I noticed that when I plugged in my phone the other day to my home the first time, it came up and said, hey, there's a connection being made here. Do you want to allow data or just strictly charging only? And you can hit charge only.
Oh, wow.
Now, here's the caveat to that. That's a software-based feature of the phone. Trust me, an attacker is going to figure out how to get around that because it's software-based.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely when you're traveling, if you're going to plug in, again, I would try to find one of those. Matter of fact, if you can't find the USB cords, I picked one up at it's called Black Hat. It's a big hackers convention at one of the booths there for one of the vendors. It's just a little USB adapter that basically turns any cable you plug into it into a charge-only cable. It doesn't allow data transfer. And you can find those on Amazon. I think I've seen them in a 3-pack for like $9. Wouldn't be bad to have on hand because it is definitely a thing. I go to, like I said, I do a lot of traveling, not just airports, hotels, conventions. A lot of times I'll see like an area where, you're attending a convention and people are sitting around and they'll have like charge stations. And I'm like, suckers. No, just please be careful with that. You have to think again.
I didn't know that you could do the power only. That one surprised me. I'm going to look into that. I had no idea. Yeah. And here's the other thing, what they were talking about when they were also talking about these things at the airport. Someday you may run into somebody, oh, look, somebody left a cable laying around. Oh, I'll take this cable. And actually, that's not even a good idea because depending on who left it behind, this is another way of being able to, through this cable, is another way of being able to get your information. Just because it looks like, ooh, bonus, somebody left this behind.
In my bat utility belt of tools that I have, I have a USB brick that is actually will exfiltrate data off of a device, any device that you plug into it. It looks like a standard Samsung or a standard brick.
Right.
But you plug it into the wall, and there's a small computer inside. So, again, I go back to that aspect. Not only is if it's not your network, if it's not your device, it's not your device.
Right.
If you're using something, obviously, if you and I are traveling together and we're good friends, I still am not. No. You want to let me borrow something? Obviously, that's a good option to have. But again, just make sure. Easiest solution again, $15. Go to Walmart and pick up a power brick and just carry it with you.
Okay. All right, so let's wrap this up. Let's do a quick review. Okay. So we talked about for the mobile device, keeping these suckers safe in 2020. First thing you want to do is put a VPN on this so people don't know where you are, or you can use do it as a hotspot. Correct.
Right.
I want to make sure I got that right. The other thing is to uninstall all these apps that you don't know, like the 5 pages of apps that I have on my phone. Uninstall the ones that you're not using, and then reinstall them.
Yeah, stop being a digital hoarder.
I'm glad I didn't have to bleep that. And maybe actually. I hate saying this, but maybe actually read those terms and condition things that you check I accept before you click I accept. I mean, I know we all do it. I mean, I bet you Bill Gates doesn't even read all this stuff, but you probably should. And then also in the process of that, doing review app permissions, do dark screen to save battery life. And then as we talked about, kind of bonus here tips. For this is don't use those charging stations that are just out and about because they may not be safe for your phone, or at least get a cord that is for power only, and avoid picking up lost and found and going, ooh, look what I found, and use that. So I
got another one for you real fast. It goes back to PCs because you just flagged something in my brain here. When you said don't pick up something, if you find a USB drive, don't plug it into your system, please.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah.
It's a very big temptation, especially if it's a really cool Batman one. I know you'd be tempted to plug it in, but it's a famous attack vector that we love to do because people fall for it 100%. Yeah. So again, don't pick up anything off the ground and use it.
Right. Okay, so we've covered the PC, we've covered the device. Let's talk about how to keep your home safe in 2020. I know you have 22 children, and 54 grandchildren. What was it? You said you have 6 children and 10 grandchildren.
10 grandkids, yes.
Oh my gosh! So let's talk about some of the things that we can keep. And top of mind to me is what's something else that's been in the news recently. Ring. What is going on with Ring? I mean, I have a Ring doorbell? Do I need to go take this thing off my house and throw it away, or what's going on with Ring? So
when it comes to Ring or any IoT, Internet of Things device that's out there, we always have a risk of we're putting something on our network that from an attacker's perspective, it's possibly a way in.
Okay.
Now, what's happened with Ring just recently, they actually, for those you don't know, some people experienced someone talking through their Ring camera to their little kid.
Right. That's scary.
Yeah. And they were pretending to be Santa Claus, which, okay, so I'm like the pessimist here. I'm sitting there going, was this maybe a prank that neighbor was doing?
Right.
But let's just talk about this from the security perspective. It was discovered that it was not a breach of Ring. Somebody, the home user, used either a really weak password, like password 123, for their network, and they were able to get onto the network and just simply use the Ring device. You even use their phone. I mean, if I can get onto your network and I've got the Ring app, I can scan, see the device, open up a connection. So that's what they've determined took place, is that they were using either a weak password or they were using what we refer to as a recycled password. Most people have 4 passwords, and they just use them over and over and over and over, and that's a mistake. I mentioned this earlier with the apps, but we'll talk about that in a few more minutes here because you need to get into a password manager. But that's what happened with Ring itself. Anyway, so yeah, that would be. I am a big fan of their particular product. I should disclose that I'm one of their beta testers. But I also have Arlo. I'm a big fan of just having eyes on when it comes to my personal property itself. So go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry, I'm getting excited. I want to talk about other stuff.
Yeah, and I have a tendency of rambling a lot, so I apologize for that. The peace of mind that those type of devices bring to me is worth the possible, I guess, risk of. Yeah, they could definitely be breached. Anybody could be breached. Anybody can be affected. Don't live your life that way. Instead, I tell people, just be aware. So that when it happens, I guarantee the first thing that's going to happen when Ring finds out about it, they're going to issue a patch. So my question is have you patched your Ring doorbell lately? Most of the time it's done automatically, but any device, sometimes you have to manually patch them.
Sort of like making sure your software is updated on your router. It's same concept. But you bring up an interesting point, which I think would bring us to number one was Ring is okay if you're not recycling passwords. And let's talk about that because I find that one to be very important. And I know you have a password management system that you like. Why don't you talk about yours and then I'll talk a little bit about mine. We'll share 2 ideas here.
You bet. So this is not where we keep our passwords.
No, God. Oh, it's not?
No. What's funny, Ron, is I was at the Container Store, and they actually have a book that says passwords. You can buy.
And you leave it on the desk.
Yeah, exactly. I've got so many funny stories about people and their passwords. I was walking through an airport and a lady had her Kindle open. She was reading this whole side of her cover. She had all of her passwords.
Oh my gosh.
On Post-it notes. And I'm like, I could take a picture. Okay, I may have accidentally taken a picture. just so that I can show I blur out stuff when I use that particular picture. But yeah, the problem is when it comes to recycled passwords, is that if you use one password, I'm using this password for all my banking institutions.
For my pet.
Yeah. And here's what comes to passwords. The reason why people recycle is because we have to come up with, I have to come up with a password that's at least 8 characters long that I'm going to remember the next time I come to this website. So yeah, I get it. I understand why people recycle passwords, is because they're like, okay, well, if it's a financial website, I'm going to use this password. If it's a shopping site, I'm going to use this password. The problem is that we humans, we use words we know already. And that's why it's easy for attackers to figure it out. It's because if I'm coming after you, Ron, I'm going to go through, let's see, just what I know about you. I'm going to use Disney character names. I'm going to use movie references, movie titles, movie star names. And I don't actually have to try to come up with those. There's actually, what's that?
Birth dates,
cities. Let's see, on Facebook, did you post what is your favorite sports team? Maybe a combination of your sports team plus the year you were born. This is the type of things that people use. Well, it's easily hacked,
right?
To be honest with you. And when it comes to these data breaches, we hear about these data breaches all the time. And what happens is that I discover as an attacker, that Ron used, let's say that Citibank got hacked. And Ron used the password of I love Mickey. Well, I'm going to try I love Mickey, and Ron's user account, maybe it's rruth at gmail.com. Don't know if that's your email or not, but I'm going to try that on Capital One. I'm going to try that on a local bank. I'm going to try to figure out what bank that you work at, PayPal. And this is why people get their identity stolen all the time. The cool thing about using a password manager, Ron, and I'm sure you too, I have no idea what my Facebook password is.
No, I don't either.
Yeah. Because what these password managers do is they create a random password. My randomness is 20 characters long, upper, lower, numbers, and symbols. Side note, drives me crazy when I go to a website and I create a password and they say, sorry, you can't use more than 12 characters. I'm like, because the longer the password, the harder it is. And the more random it is, obviously, makes a difference. So I go to the website, it fills it in for me. If it's my first time to the website, the product I use is called LastPass. And it monitors as whether I'm on my phone or on my PC. It sees that I went to eBay. The first time I go there, I type in my username and password, and it pops up in my browser and says, do you want me to record this information? And do you want me to automatically log you in next time you come to this page? No, don't. And the reason why a lot of you may be going, whoa, what? Yeah.
Yeah, even I am. I'm like, what?
Yeah, because if I steal your laptop, I'm going to go to eBay or PayPal, and it's going to auto-log me in for you as an attacker. So that's why I don't auto-log in. Again, it requires me to go up and hit a button to log in. It's the manual option.
So you don't want to use when Chrome says you want me to remember this, or when or net. I use Chrome all the time. So
right.
Yeah, so I don't remember
Edge
or any of that stuff. You don't want to let it keep those. Okay, then because and then you have a password manager. If you open it up, I know that you can see I can see every password just by hitting password manager that I have stored on Chrome. So thank you, Dale, for making me. So I'm going to be up late tonight. I use the product you're using is called what?
LastPass. Real quick. Besides passwords, it also stores vital documents. So I can put in my passport number. I can put in credit card information, and it's all 256-bit encrypted when it's transferred. I have one password that I have to memorize to log into LastPass to let it do its job. And it's similar with almost all the products out there. And that password for me is...
oh, wait. Let me
almost got me, Ron. Yeah, so that password is extreme. It should be long, still somewhat easy to remember because you don't want to be resetting it all the time.
No, I use Keeper. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on Keeper. It does a lot of the same things that you're just talking about. The beauty of what I like about it is that it has it. If I want to change a password, I go and into that particular website on Keeper, and I roll the dice, and it gives me a password as long as I want. And then I just enter that into the website, and that becomes my new password. But I'm a huge believer. I'm like you. It's like I have too many. It became. I was that guy that had written down, and I'd have to, and then inevitably I would lose the passwords. I don't. Where the heck did I put this? Which is really bad, because somebody breaking into my home would probably have no problem finding the password list. Okay, so we had two. We got a third one here. We got something else we can do for phones. Okay, I mean for homes. For
homes, yeah. So one of my main focuses, even though I'm a cybersecurity expert at the corporate level, one of my passions through my YouTube channel is protecting families. Our kids are growing up. The video I usually show when I'm presenting is he's now 9 years old, my grandson, but when he was 3, we have a video of him going up to the flat screen TV and trying to swipe.
Yeah.
The selection. We had Netflix up, and he's trying to swipe. The funny part of the story is that we were casting, and so when he swiped, we swiped on our phone, so it looked like he was moving it, so he could choose his movie. But this is the technology that we're growing up around, and that these kids are exposed. And we all know how fast we can go from Disney to an extremely dark space in this world.
Yeah.
For kids. There are several solutions that are out there that can help protect our families, our kids. And I never want to get into the debate of when is some of this information good for kids or not good for kids. For me, I'm going to wait until they become adults before
right.
At least that's my goal, because heavens knows they've got enough stuff coming at them already. So I actually enjoy two different products. And the first one is called the Circle by Disney. It's not owned by Disney, but Disney invested in them.
Okay.
And this is what it looks like.
Okay.
Isn't that intrusive looking? Ooh,
it's a cube, not a circle.
Yeah. True that, huh? So this device plugs into your network. You just plug it in. It's got a little port on the back. You plug it in with a cable into your router, and you have an app on your phone as of the parent. And you can go through and say, you know what? we want family time after 6 o'clock, so all the devices in the house have no internet access.
Wow.
Yeah. You can also go through and obviously do different types of filters based off of different categories. You can set up reward systems. Hey, if Gabe reads for a half hour, if he comes to me and says, hey, Dad, I read for, I know, can you believe half hour? Just an example. But if you read for a half hour, Gabe, I'll give you an extra 40 minutes of Xbox time. And through the app, you can reward them and say he gets extra time on this particular device. It actually sees all your devices. You mentioned the commercial with Xfinity and the guy. This will tell you when a new device enters your network as well, which is cool. Now, what's really cool is a lot of people may be thinking, Dale, it's really neat, but what happens when my kid takes his phone and goes to a friend's house? Well, they have an app and a subscription service. There's actually, you can get, I'm trying to think of the Circle subscription service. I want to say it's like $89, maybe $79 a year, but it loads the app on their phone, and no matter where they're at, it locks them out of those particular sites, or it puts those same type of limitations. Last time I checked, when I bought this one, Amazon had a special where you got a lifetime subscription and the device for like $300. Oh, wow. I know that seems like a lot of money, but when you start adding up $89, $79 a year, it doesn't take you that long to recoup that. And to help
protect your kids in the process.
You know, for me, I know money is relative to everyone's situation, right, but the safety of my kid will always come first. And I think that's the same way with most people. The product I'm playing around with right now is called Firewalla.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's Firewall, with a W at the, or excuse me, firewall with an A at the end.
Okay.
This one is for those geeks out there. This is what you want. Does the same thing, but it has so much more granular control over all your devices. And you don't have to load anything on those devices. The downside to it is it doesn't work on the cell phone once it leaves or the tablet once it leaves your house. That's why the Disney Circle in my book is primo. But for those nerd folks out there, it shows you how much data each device is using. You can block video, or you can block all video, or you can block, there's just a family safety option. You can also say just block social media sites. I can say block video, so no YouTube videos from this hour to this hour each day. And it also has a reward system that's based off their operating system. It's all handled through your phone, so you don't have to fire up a PC if you don't want to. It's a great little product. They sell both what your audience is probably interested in is called the Firewall Blue, which is designed for small offices to business environments. And okay. I want to say ballpark about $160-ish for the device, but it's the same thing. It plugs in right next to your router, doesn't take the place of your router, and starts controlling. Here's the thing for me is this is our network. We need to control it. It's not just open season for anybody. So those are my two solutions that I use.
All right. So the top three, just to review on the house, is Ring is okay, but you need. But the idea here is you don't want to keep recycling passwords, and that leads us into get yourself a password manager, whether it is Keeper or what was the one yours again was LastPass. Get one of those. Get something, but the main thing is get away from using only the 4 primary passwords that we all seem to get caught up in. And then the last one was protecting your family, and that's through a device like Disney Circle.
The other one is just called Firewall A. So Firewall.
Wow, we have more than expired our time, and it's gone so fast. But we've covered a tremendous amount of ground, and I hope that the audience watching, that you all have gained something from this. Dale, let's talk a little bit. A couple of quick things. I know that you have a tremendous web presence. I love your videos. You have you're on Instagram and you're on YouTube for sure. How can they get in contact with you on those sites and via email if they want to?
You bet. So you can reach out to me. Our YouTube channel is called Dale Dumbs It Down. So Dale Dumbs It Down. Easy enough to remember. Same thing with the website. It's just daledumbsitdown.com. You can reach out to me if you want on Gmail. It's easy. It's dale.meredith@gmail.com.
And Instagram. Don't forget, you're on Instagram at Dale Dumbs It Down as well.
Dale Dumbs It Down as well. Right. Yeah, we've got a whole new launch coming up on January 10th for that one. Again, those channels are being primarily focused again towards families and taking technology and dumbing it down so that we understand what it is we're dealing with. Again, tech tools are cool, but you got to know what's going on.
Dale, thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate it. For those of you watching, thank you so much for staying with us. I hope that you gained something out of this. Share information in the comments below. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. And I look forward to speaking to all of you very, very soon. Until then, see y'all later.
Thanks, everybody.